just like that. But will your father and grandfather agree? Shut up. Whether Chairman Shu and the old chairman agree is none of your business. You do not need to.
Long time no see. 3:21,
21. What?
Hello.
Oh, good chapter. This is we call the loopholes chapter.
We're finishing this today.
Loopholes, Mukzeh loopholes.
Hmm?
Mukzeh loopholes. How to
Mhm.
move Mukzeh objects.
Yeah.
Good evening, everybody.
Evening.
We are still in volume 20.
321.
Yep, 321. Permitted ways to move Mukzeh. Throughout our study of Mukzeh, we have explored the criteria by which certain items become classified as Mukzeh for weekday use, and thus incompatible for handling on Shabbos. Fundamentally, articles designated as Mukzeh have no function on Shabbos, and it is thus forbidden to move them, as we normally do. However, inevitably, items from the various categories of Mukzeh may end up in places where they don't belong, making it impossible to reach permitted things, or use certain spaces, or presenting nuisances or hazards. So is there any way in which one is permitted to move Mukzeh items in such cases? I mean, we've already been through some of that. We will see in this section that the halacha does offer unconventional or indirect ways in which it is permitted to move Mukzeh items on Shabbos in many cases. First, let us examine the basic principle that the halacha forbids only moving Mukzeh items, but ostensibly it is permitted to touch these items without moving them. Although it is prohibited to move Mukzeh items on Shabbos, the Maram of Rottenburg, cited by the Mordechai, one of the Rishonim, clarifies that touching Mukzeh items is permitted. Consequently, one may remove a non-Mukzeh item that was placed on a Mukzeh item, even though one will thereby touch the Mukzeh item. Right? We learned last week it's a problem if the Mukzeh item is resting on a non-Mukzeh item. The non-Mukzeh item becomes a bossis, l'dover ha'aser. And then even sometimes when the Mukzeh item is removed from there, you may not touch the bossis. But this is talking about the opposite, where a permitted item is sitting on top of a Mukzeh item. There, even though you might come to touch the Mukzeh item itself when you move the non-Mukzeh item, you're allowed to do it. Says the Mordechai Masechta Beitza, because of Rabbeinu Meir, the imchafetz or shum dover munach alamos. You have a permitted item that is resting on money. Money is a Mukzeh item. Or al shar Mukzeh b'Shabbos, or another Mukzeh items. V'hu tzarich la'osa chafetz, and he needs the item that is resting on the Mukzeh item. Muter litlo, you can take it. Yishum ki dover Mukzeh eino osur rak l'taltelo mimakom l'makom. A Mukzeh item cannot be moved from place to place. Avaligo bo muter. To touch a Mukzeh item is permitted. So here it is in black and white. There's no problem in touching a Mukzeh item, it's just moving it. And the Shulchan Aruch codifies this ruling as halacha. Davar shu Mukzeh muter ligabo. Uvat shlo yimaneya. Afilu mitzvah, you shouldn't move it. Earlier, the Ramah mentions and illustrates this halacha. Kol Mukzeh eina aser ela b'tiltulo. When we talk about Mukzeh being prohibited, you can't move it. Aval b'negiya ba'alma, but just touching it. She'eno midnadnedo, you're not moving it. Shari, it's permitted. V'lachrein muter liga b'mnoiras shebeis hakneses sheneros dalkas alav. Let's say there's a candelabra in shul, and there are candles burning in the candelabra. You can touch the menorah. You can't move it. You can touch it. Oh, betanur shadolik bo'esh. You have an oven, and the fire is on. You can touch the oven. You can take a non-Mukzeh item that is resting on a Mukzeh item. You can take it. Now, the Talmud Yerushalmi appears to contradict this ruling of the Maram and the Shulchan Aruch. The Yerushalmi states that although one may cover an egg that was laid on Yontif, an egg laid on Yontif is Mukzeh, since it was newly formed on Yontif. That's called Mukzeh Machmas Nolad. It's something that was created on Shabbos, didn't exist before. Items of this type, which come into existence or into a new form on Shabbos, belong to the Mukzeh category of nolad. However, raw eggs are not Mukzeh on Shabbos, as they may sometimes be swallowed raw. When I was in the shul choir, before slichas, my mother would always give me a raw egg to gargle or drink, whatever that was helpful for your throat.
Benny Kozovitsky did that, and as a result, became a rage. My father was telling me the same thing.
Although the Yerushalmi states, right, that although may one cover an egg that was laid on Yontif, the vessel covering it may not touch the egg. Beitza shall know to be Yontif. So you don't want to move that egg. It's Mukzeh. So the Gemara advises you to soimchin lo kli b'shur shlo tiskagya. Put a kli over it so it won't roll. Shmuel Amar koyfen ale kli. Put a kli. The first it was just put a kli next to it. Shmuel says you can actually put a kli over it. Amar Rav Mana, very interesting that they're talking about a kli, and the Tana here, or the Amoira, is Rav Mana. A Mana is a kli. Amar Rav Mana v'vash lo yeh kli nogeh begufa shel beitza. So in Yerushalmi it says that the permitted items shouldn't touch the Mukzeh item. Now, if the Yerushalmi accepts the view of Rav Mana, according to which the vessel may not touch the egg, does this discredit the position of the Marami Rottenberg? The Rishonim disagree as to how to resolve this question. The Magid Mishnah, commentary on the Rambam, suggests that the ruling of the Yerushalmi applies specifically to an egg, due to the likelihood that touching it with a vessel will cause it to move, because an egg is very fragile. Right? Yerushalmi, v'vatch lo yiga bebeitza ad kan. V'lo yadati tam, says the Magid. He doesn't understand. He doesn't understand. Is it not allowed to touch it? A noiled item? Avadai lo, that's not correct. Perhaps, since you're not allowed to move a muktzah item, perhaps the problem is if you allow the kli to touch the beitzah, it will move the beitzah. The Tzurba Mrabanan, another Rishon, finds this answer difficult, and instead suggests that in the case of the Yerushalmi, one touches the muktzah for the needs of the muktzah, meaning to protect that item, not to protect or benefit people or things which are useful on Shabbos. So for this reason, it is forbidden. The Tzurba Mrabanan tries to reconcile. The koyfen kli al beitza shel no be yontiv. Why did we put a vessel over an egg on yontiv? Kadesh lo chishaber. So we want to make sure it doesn't break. And we're told not to touch the egg with the kli. So the Tzurba Mrabanan, of course, knows the Marami Rottenberg. He knows the Mordechai. You're allowed to touch a muktzah. What's wrong with this kli business? Doichek loimer. It's hard to say, given debates of davar misgalgelu, that since an egg is easily rolled, and that the reason you're saying to make sure not to have the kli touch the beitzah is because you're concerned that it's going to cause the egg to roll. No, elanir lechalek, you can distinguish the hasam kivin danachas kli ala beitzah. Hilatzarcha beitzah, putting the kli over the egg is to protect the egg. It's for the need of the egg. That's why you can't touch it. Thus, the Magid Mishnah holds that one may normally touch a muktzah item other than an egg that's born on Yontif for any purpose. By contrast, the Tzurba Mrabanan holds that one may not touch any muktzah item whenever touching it is necessary for the muktzah item specifically. The Shulchan Aruch does quote the Yerushalmi. The Mishnah Berurah accepts the explanation of the Magid Mishnah, as the Gra agrees with his opinion. He says, you can put a kli over the egg as long as the kli doesn't touch it. The Mishnah Berurah repeats the concept that you're allowed to touch a muktzah item with your fingers. This is only a din on the egg, not to move it. But other item that isn't a movable item so easily. Ayideh Negiah Shari. So the Mishnah Berurah says you're allowed to touch items that are mukzeh. Because an egg is so exceptionally wobbly, Rav Nissim Karelitz, who's a contemporary posek, the Bezdin of Rav Nissim Karelitz, writes that the stringency of touching it does not apply even to other items that may very well shake or be moved. Accordingly, unless one is certain that it will shake, you can touch a muktzeh item. The Chut HaShani, which is the Sefer of the Nissim Karelitz, Nirahu, the Asr Lingoa b'muktzeh kishemit nade. Let's say you have something that does rock or roll by touching it. Then, if it's a muktzeh item, you shouldn't touch it. If you know it's going to move. It's not certain that it's going to move. It might move. That's not a prohibition.
Amen.
What about indirect movement? I'm teaching now. Oh, hi.
Yeah.
We'll call you back soon.
Okay, great. Okay.
Hi, Hillel. Okay. We mentioned at the beginning of this section that even items that may not normally be moved on Shabbos may sometimes be moved in an unusual manner. And in the remaining part of the shiur, we will explore if and when the Rishonim and Achronim rule that moving items indirectly or using other parts of one body may be permitted. There are two major categories of unusual movement that are discussed. Number one, tiltul minatzad, which is indirect movement. Moving an object by way of moving another object, as in moving a non-muktzeh item when a muktzeh item sits atop it, such as moving a barrel when a stone sits upon it, as long as the barrel is not classified as a bossis or a base, that's tiltul minatzad. Or tiltul begufo, movement with the body. Moving an object with a part of one's body other than one's hand, such as pushing it with one's feet. The Gemara Masechta Shabbos Mem Gimel Amud Beis appears to issue contradictory rulings about the first category, tiltul minatzad. In one passage, the Gemara states that Amoraim disagree whether one may move a corpse, a mace, from the sun into the shade on Shabbos indirectly by turning it over from bed to bed. In this case, the Gemara appears to conclude that moving muktzeh in this indirect manner is no different from moving it directly, which would be forbidden. Itmar. Meis hamutel b'chama. Unfortunately, a person died on Shabbos. And he died outside, and he's in the sun. And it's not covered for the mace to be out there. He might deteriorate from the sun. So Rav Yudah Amar Shmuel, Hovchu Mimita Lamita. If he's on a cot, so you don't touch the mace directly, but you take another cot and you move the mace from one cot to another, and then on and on and on, moving it indirectly. Rav Chanina bar Shalma Mishmei Rav Amar Meniach alav kikar o tinak umetatma. You put an infant or a loaf of bread on the mace, and you carry the mace because you're allowed to carry a tinok or a piece of bread. When you have a loaf of bread or a tinok available, there's no argument. Everybody agrees that that's permitted. Ki pligi, the less they mar, the less lay. You don't have a kikar or a tinok. So mar sarver tiltum not such may tiltum. That Rav held that moving it from cot to cot is a problem, and you can't do it. And you're only allowed to do it if you have a tinok or a kikar. And umar sarvelosh may tiltul, it's not a problem. That's why Shmuel allowed you to do it. Le mekitanai. The Gemara brings, well, maybe this is an earlier machlokas. between Tanoim and the Tosefta. No. Kulama tiltum and atzad shmei tiltum. That everyone holds actually that even indirect moving the mace from cot to cot is considered tiltul. You're not allowed to do it. Now, in contradistinction, according to the Mishnah that we saw previously, if you had a stone on top of a barrel and you want to get access to the barrel has wine in it. One may tilt the barrel, which has a stone upon it, so that the stone falls off, and then you can pour the wine from the opening. This was permitted in a case in which the barrel does not qualify as a basis. We said something is a basis when it's there from bein hashmashos, right? A non-muktzeh item supporting muktzeh item becomes muktzeh itself as a base only if a number of conditions are met. Either some people say you have to have in mind that it should be there for the whole Shabbos. Some say maybe only in mind if it's there bein hashmashos, and you placed it there. It can't be, if you forgot it there, that's not necessarily makes it a basis, right? So by tilting the barrels and having the stone fall off, that's tiltul min hatzad, and it seems that the Mishnah permitted it, right? Ha'evan shal pi hachavis, if you have a stone which is a muktzeh machmas gufa, right, on a barrel, mata al tzida, you can tilt the barrel on its side. Vinofelas, the stone falls off. Haisa ben chavios, and if the barrel was among other barrels, and you're concerned by tilting the barrel is going to break other barrels if the stone falls off. Magbia umat al tzida vinofelas, you can actually lift the barrel, so it's a bigger action, and then you're going to tilt it so that the stone falls away from the other barrels. And then mo shalakar, if you have money on a pillow, minar esakar ve'nofelas, you can shake the pillow. You're not touching the money. It's indirect. L'chora, it's tiltul min hatzad, and l'chora, you're allowed to do it. So there seems to be a machlokes between the Amoraik Rav's opinion that tiltul min hatzad was a problem and the Mishnah. So accordingly, it seems that the sources are inconsistent regarding whether one may move muktzeh in this indirect manner by moving an item upon which the muktzeh sits. Tosfos in Shabbos Mem Daled, it's the sugya there, right? Mem Gimel Omid Beis, and it continues to Mem Daled Omid Aleph, resolves the contradiction. Because, of course, that Tosfos brings the Mishnah to ask a kasha, right? And they resolve the contradiction by distinguishing between moving muktzeh for the purpose of the muktzeh, such as moving the mace, and moving muktzeh for the purpose of a permitted item, such as moving the barrel with the stone on it. In the former case, when you're trying to move the muktzeh item itself, moving it in an indirect manner is forbidden. While in the latter case, you are moving the muktzeh on behalf of the permitted item, the barrel, is permitted. Omer Ri, right? The Ri is one of the main Balei Tosfos. Rav Yitzchak of Dampierre in France. Diesh lechalek, da'acha ikra tilta l'tzorach meis. So, in the case when Rav forbade, it was the purpose of movement is on behalf of the muktzeh item. When the money is on the pillow, you want to use the pillow. You have no use for the money on Shabbos. So when you're shaking the money off the pillow, that you're allowed to do, or shaking the stone off the barrel, because you want to use the permitted item. When you're doing something on behalf of the muktzeh item, like the mace, so even tiltul min hatzad is not appropriate. So why would indirect movement permit moving muktzeh items lechatchila in some cases? In most of HIlchos Shabbos, simply performing a prohibited act in an unusual manner does not make it permitted, even in cases of a rabbinic prohibition. Rosh Shlomo Zalman Auerbach explains that the halacha is more lenient concerning indirect movements of Mukzeh due to the connection between the laws of Mukzeh and the malach of carrying objects into, out of, and through the public domain. So in the Mincha Shlomo, which is the Shilos and Shuvas of Shlomo Zalman, he explains time at the Milsa. Why is there more leniency by Mukzeh? Nira, the Kivan Shisr Mukzeh hu Gzeira oto Hotzah. Right away he starts by saying that the whole prohibition of Mukzeh is itself a Gzeira, that you shouldn't come to carry. Lachein kol shemetaltel begufo uklach yad. If you move a Mukzeh item with your body, or sort of with the back of your hand, or with your foot, right? So when you carry, in order to get a chatas outside Daled Amis or Shusarabim, you have to carry in a normal way. If you carry kilach yad, you wouldn't get a chatas. So since the whole reason for Mukzeh is gzeira to prevent you from doing hotzah, and they're doing by hotzah, kilach yad or minatzad would not be considered hotzah. What did Nami do? Mukzeh. So they didn't extend the prohibition of Mukzeh to such a degree. In accordance with Tosfos, the Shulchan Aruch rules that one may move a Mukzeh item indirectly in the interests of a permitted item, but not when motivated to protect the Mukzeh item itself. Says the Shulchan Aruch in Shin Yud Aleph, Tiltu Menatzad L'Tzorch Davra Mutter Mutter. Moving indirectly and to bend, and you were talking about moving the Mukzeh item, and you move it either with your body or kilach riyad, is permitted if the purpose of it is you need access to a permitted item. Let's say the Mukzeh item is on top of something that you want to use, as long as it's not a bosses. Thus, this principle of indirect movement permits one to move a non-Mukzeh item when a Mukzeh item is upon it, as we said, unless the non-Mukzeh has the formal status of a bosses, of a base, which we've already established those criteria. Nevertheless, it is apparent from the Mishnah above that if one can tilt the stone off the barrel before moving the barrel, it's preferred, right? Because it gave us two stages. And if there were barrels, then you could lift it. But if there weren't barrels, the better way is to just tilt it. So there is preference. In cases when tilting off the stone might damage something, then you can pick up the barrel with the stone on it. And that's how the Shulchan Aruch ruled. Shochach even al pi chavis. You forgot a stone on a barrel. Or mos al akar. Or you left money on a pillow. Mate chavis al tzid of even ofelas. You tilt the barrel and the stone falls off. Minara akar v'amos noflim. You just move the pillow and the money falls off. If the barrel is among other barrels and you're concerned that just tilting the barrel and the stone's going to roll off is going to damage the other barrels, where it's problematic to tilt it, you can actually lift the barrel with the stone on it to a wide open place, and then lahantoso sham, and then there you can tilt it and get the stone off, so that it falls off by itself. The Mishnah Berurah adds, based on source 39, where source 39 was tiltum and atzad letzorch davar mutter mutter, that even tilting the Mukzeh item away is permitted only when one wishes to use the non-Mukzeh item, like the barrel or the pillow. But if one is concerned about the Mukzeh item, then indirect tilting is not allowed. Just the footnote 17. Although it remains prohibited mirabanan to perform the malach of carrying any object in an indirect manner, when it comes to moving Mukzeh, which is not a malacha even when performed normally, the halacha is more lenient when one moves an item indirectly. Mishnah Berurah. Al Tzida. Umayri b'shetzarach likach me'ayayin shebesochel. We're talking about you need the barrel because you want to take wine out of it. V'chein b'kar. You found some money on a pillow and you want to sleep. So in those cases, there was a heter. V'chein hitiru. L'tatel ha'mukzeh b'oifen zeh. She'ena metatel la'adei. You're not moving it directly, you're just shaking it. Aval, says the Mishnah Berurah, he qualifies. If you didn't need the barrel of wine or the pillow, for some reason, let's say the Mukzeh item is expensive, and you think it's in an open area, someone's going to take it, or you're concerned about the loss of the Mukzeh item. That's why you want to get it off of this thing. So you're afraid it's going to get stolen. So afilu near usher. So you can't move it at all. Kach of Magen Avram. B'shem Rabbeinu Yerucham. Rabbeinu Yerucham is a Rishon. The Magen Avram, of course, is a commentary on the Shulchan Aruch, much later Achron. But obviously found a Rabbeinu Yerucham that said that you have to be machmir if it's for the Mukzeh item. I think he's here to drop off. That's Rabbi Carmel. Just
Hello?
see if he's, tell him I'm teaching.
Yes, hi.
Yeah. Yeah, just he can come
Yes,
in.
Yes, yes.
But Susie, you'll answer the door, right?
It's coming at 9.
It's coming at 9. Oh, okay. Right, then he said if we're concerned that the stone is going to fall on the other barrels, he allowed you to lift the barrel itself. It's indirect movement. He's not actually moving the Mukzeh item directly. Again, the intent has to be he wants the permitted item like the barrel of the pillow. Dovers are shari, like we said, b'shin yud aleph. Afiloch b'reisha k'shay efshar lo b'nir tzarach nir dafka. He's telling you that if you can get away with just shaking the barrel, it's better to do that than just lifting it. The Shulchan Aruch also rules that one may move the barrel with the stone atop it if one needs the location of the barrel. So that's a new thing. I mean, it's not just that you needed the barrel of wine, but the barrel is sitting somewhere where you were planning you have some guests arriving and you need to have room to put chairs there. The barrel could be moved with the stone on top of it if you needed the location of the barrel. When is it permitted that you can only move it by tilting the barrel? That's dafka b'tzarach l'gufa chavis v'akar. You needed to get the stone off the barrel or the pillow because you wanted to use the barrel of the pillow. But you don't need the barrel, you just need its place. Or v'hakar, lo yispik lo ati of a niur. And it's not enough to just shake it off, you got to actually move. You can move the barrel with the stone, v'yamamos, or the pillow with the money, shalihem lefanos makoimim, in order to get rid of where they are because you need its place. The Mishnah Berurah notes, as we have mentioned previously, that these halachos are said with reference to a case in which the non-Mukzeh supporting item remains permitted. These leniencies do not apply if the non-Mukzeh item that the Mukzeh item is resting on has become a formal basis, a base for the Mukzeh item, which we went through. It's got to be there with intent. You've got to place it there. Ben hashmashos. The biggest leniency was you have to have in mind to put it there and have it rest there all of Shabbos. He's probably here, Susie. That's why he was calling.
Mm-hmm.
If you forgot a muktzeh item, right? You didn't place it there on purpose. One of the gedorim to say that it's not a bossis. The b'meiniach.
It's somebody else. Is it this person? No, it's-
I'm teaching right now.
Because, let's make it this.
You give him the 2 minutes. If that's him. That means if you purposely placed the muktzah item on the barrel or the pillow or whatever the thing is that you want to move, then it's a bossis, and you're not allowed to move the item. Is that him?
Yeah.
That him? Okay. Okay, thank you. Based on the principles we have learned, the Shulchan Aruch permits tilting a board which sits upon the table in order to remove inedible scraps from the table. So, atzamas sheru'uyim leklavim. You've had a nice Shabbos meal. You have some chulent bones, and these are bones that dogs would eat. Klipim shurin l'maychel behema. You have, shells of nuts or other peels that I guess goats would eat. Goats can eat a tin can, right? Uprurim, she'ein b'hem kazayas. You have crumbs less than the kazayas. Mutter lavira me'al hashulchan. You can remove them from a table. Remember, after you've eaten meat and you're left with a bone, the bone technically becomes a muktzeh item. There's nothing with you to do it on Shabbos. However, if you can feed it to a dog, so you have a purpose for it, or these other things. Let's say the peels cannot be eaten by a baby. Also, you can't move them directly. Let's say they put a board on top of the table, they would tilt the board and all the peelings would fall off. Now, let's say you had a board, but you need the table. If the board has things on it that you can't really feed to a baby, you can still lift the board and remove the muktzeh items that are there. Why is it permissible to cause the useless muktzeh scraps to move by lifting the board? The Mishmur explains that the reason is the same as the allowance to move the barrel in the previous case. One is moving the muktzeh directly for the benefit of the permitted item. You want to use the table. It has nothing to do with the muktzeh, namely the table, to make space. There was some board that was placed to put bread on it, or the tablecloth. And you can take the tablecloth and shake off the stuff. You're not touching the muktzeh items themselves. It's minat sad. Would it also be considered indirect and thus permitted to move peels or shells using a knife or other silverware? So that might be maybe too direct movement. Maybe not. According to the Taz, since the person does not move the items with his hands, it's considered indirect movement and permitted. Right? You use an intermediary kli. You gather the crumbs with a knife. You didn't touch the scraps. Okay. This ruling is accepted by the Mishnah Berurah. However, the Shulchan Aruch Harav, the Balatanya, writes that's forbidden, because the knife is considered an extension of a person's hand, and therefore, you moving it that way, it's considered direct movement, right? If they're ruis for behema, you can move it because it's a muktzeh that can be used. But if the klipos cannot be moved, where we said are not roy lebehema, where we said tiltul manatzad works by shaking the tablecloth or the board, right? These are muktzeh like lumber and stone. So also you cannot use it with your hands or with something that you hold in your hands. Like to gather them up with a knife. They're not moving themselves. They are sakin. I mean, but a tablecloth, it's not considered, like when you shake a tablecloth, it's not considered direct. I mean, you're doing it with your hands, but it's like a knife or a fork is literally considered an extension of your hand. That's the way the Taz and the Shulchan Aruch Harav learn. But the Chazon Ish forbid moving shells using a knife for different reasons. In his opinion, indirect movement is permitted only when it's clearly for a purpose other than for the Mukzeh item, such as walking normally outside and pushing away branches on the ground in the process. When one moves shells using a knife, the action is oriented around removing the Mukzeh item, even if the table also gets cleaned in the process.
That's not for the benefit of the Mukzeh.
Right, I mean, you want the benefit of the clean table.
I know the Chazon Ish really went hard right on this one. The consensus here on our table is that it seems to be a very stringent ruling, because it really is for the benefit of the table. You don't care about those klipos. Let's just see what the Chazon Ish says. He says that the Taz hitir legar muktzeh b'sakin. He quotes the Taz, who permitted using the knife to gather the crumbs. It falls under that category as indirect movement because you need the place, i.e. a clean table. He's referring to the Shulchan Aruch Harav. That using the knife is not considered, it's not indirect enough. When did they say tiltum natzad works? That if you forgot the stone on the barrel, you're allowed to move the barrel. The shema tiltul ala kli. So it's almost like relativity, that what you're moving really is the kli. Ikra tiltul bishvila muktzeh. Is it? He says the purpose of the tiltul is for the muktzeh item itself. Even though his intent is to clean the table. And you can see contemporary poskim, including the Shmir Shabbos HIlchos and HIlchos Yosef, rule in accordance with the opinion of the Taz Mishnah Berurah. That's unusual, right? Because most of the Mishnah Berurah, certainly it's not unusual. The Chazon Ish was after the Mishnah Berurah, but the Shmir Shabbos HIlchos to not hold like the Chazon Ish is a little bit of a pella. But you have the Taz, who's a very early achron, very important achron, that said it's permitted. That one may use a permitted item to remove a muktzeh item indirectly. See Dor HaMalaktim for a lengthy list of authorities that adopt a lenient opinion. Says the HIlchos Yosef, right? That's Rav Yitzchak Yosef, the son of Rav Ovadia. Mutter l'tatal muktzeh b'tiltum v'natzad. You can use indirect motion. Your intent is for a permitted reason, permitted kli. You use another object to move the muktzeh. You don't touch the muktzeh direct. What about moving muktzeh with one's body? So far, we have seen that moving muktzeh items is permitted indirectly, only when they are moved for the purpose of using the non-muktzeh item. The Mishnah Masechta Shabbos permits moving straw, even if one's purpose is not for some other permitted item, if one uses a part of one's body other than one's hands. Hakash, sha'al gabi amita, you have straw that's on the bed. Lo yinaneu biyado elamanara begufo. You should use your body to move the straw. Rishonim disagree as to the parameters of the Mishnah's allowance to move the straw with one's body. The Rosh explains that one may move the straw with one's body even for the benefit of the straw itself. Hikshal zeh Rav Yoina, mehadetana lekamon beperek toilin akash alamita lo yinanenu. Biyado, it says the straw that's on the bed, you shouldn't move with your hand. Aval minano begufa, you move it with your body. V'hasam litzorach hakashu mukzehu metaltel. Now, they're moving it for the benefit of the straw. How can you do that? Loy kasha. V'hasam av tiltelein kan. There's no really movement because you're using your body. Straw is mukzeh, and he needs it. It's as if it's moved indirectly for the benefit of a permitted item. So the Ran, on the other hand, explains that in the Mishnah, the person does not need the straw. He wants the bed. Accordingly, it's classified as a case of moving something for the need of a permitted item. We were given a permit to move the straw with your body. It's not because he wants the straw. So it's a davar mutter. Can't use the bed without moving it. You're not moving the straw directly. You're doing it indirectly. According to the Rosh, one is permitted to move Mukzeh items using one's body, even for the purpose of the Mukzeh itself. While according to the Ran, one may move Mukzeh items using one's body only for the purpose of the permitted item. Then you can move the Mukzeh item indirectly. How does the Shulchan Aruch rule? Leniently, like the Rosh, permits moving Mukzeh items with one's body, even when it's for the benefit of the Mukzeh item itself. The Mishmur writes that there's no difference between moving something with one's torso and moving it with your leg, as long as one is not using their hands. Right? Other limbs. That's even more makel than like an indirect, taking a board, lifting it and dumping the peels, or using your knife, and this is even more indirect. That's why, even for the intent of the Mukzeh purpose item, you can move it that way. The Chazon Ish disagrees with the Shulchan Aruch, rules that one may not move Mukzeh items with one's body if one's intent is primarily to move the Mukzeh. He's going more like with the Ran. The Chazon Ish supports his contention from a passage in the Gemara HIlchos Shabbos that permits moving Mukzeh only in an indirect manner. Tan Rabbanan, ein matchilin be'otzer tchila. Excuse me. You have like a warehouse or a storehouse. That's the otzer. And let's say this is a new storehouse, and you had never removed items from there before. So you can't start on Shabbos. Let's say you have your wine that you're going to use for Kiddush in the back of this machsan, and you need to create a path to get back there, so then you can move items in from the oitzer to make a path. That's what the Gemara in HIlchos Shabbos says. What he means there is you shouldn't use your hands to move these items. You should use your feet. Says the Chazon Ish. There, they didn't allow you to move the things with your foot for the Mukzeh item. You wanted to get a permitted item. You push items to create a path with your leg. Just going in and out, and not just indirectly. Even if you need the place, Below mikral tiltul minatzad el tiltul gamor. So, but in accordance with the opinion of the Shulchan Aruch and Mishnah Berurah, the Shmir Shabbos Kalchasa rules that moving muktzah with one's body is always permitted. If you're moving the muktzah item in a way that is not normally moved on weekday, it's permitted. You blow, or tchifa, you push it with a foot, beregel, or b'mafrek, your elbow, the back of your hand, batzila yodov, upper arms. Hu anikra b'shem tiltul bagufo or tiltul klachiyat. Tiltul ze mutar afilu kishmetatul l'tzorach hadavar muktzah atzmo. Again, they say clearly that it's permitted even for the muktzah item itself. Kigon matbeya or shtar kesef shemotzam bercho. You found a coin or a bill in the street. He says you can kick it to an area where you can hide it. You want to be zoicha in this item after Shabbos. It's obviously a devar. We're talking about something that doesn't have a simon, and it looks like it's a hefker thing. I mean, you find a dollar bill, there's no simon on a dollar bill on the street, or coin. So you can kick it with your leg so that it's hidden, and then after Shabbos you can come and get it. Imamnam yesh eruv b'makom. That's if there's an eruv. Right? Coins and bills do not normally contain any distinguishing characters. They're not subject to the mitzvah of Hashavas Aveda. So that's why I clarified. Says he just accepted from him. Tell him I'm teaching. Well, he knows Tzurba. They produce Tzurba. The head of Eretz Chemder of Carmel, Tzurba's Doron Podlashuk, who's the head of Torah Manigud. Torah Manigud is a department within Eretz Chemda. We were zocheh to have Rabbi Carmel giving us a shiur Motzei Shabbos in our Navi shiur, and I sent it to the Navi shiur people by WhatsApp. A beautiful shiur on David HaMelech. The Yalkut Yosef also rules leniently in accordance with the Shulchan Aruch and Mishnah Berurah. That's Rav Yitzchak Yosef. He also mentions that poskim disagree whether this leniency applies when one normally moves a muktzah item with one's body, such as a watch that stopped working or carrying a wallet in one's pocket. Lo asru chacham letatel muktzah b'Shabbos ela b'tiltul shu kedarko biyad. When the chachamim prohibited moving a muktzah item on Shabbos, they prohibited doing with your hand. Aval mutzah letatel muktzah b'gufo shelo kedarko. But a muktzah item may be moved with your body, or some, like we've discussed, unusual method. Some say you can move items like this with your feet. The choshev ketiltul begufo.
זה בשבילכם, הלכות קידושין באנגלית.
יפה.
זה חדש הוצאנו עכשיו. זה החתן שלי, שהוא בוגר ארץ חמדה, ידי.
הוא, מייקל הריס או דניאל?
לא. דיין עופר לבנה.
עופר לבנה.
כן, הוא תלמיד שלנו בלונדון, והוא בוגר שלנו בארץ חמדה בירושלים, והרב לבנת הוא בוגר שלנו.
יפה.
ברוך השם.
יפה,
יופי,
תודה.
להתראות, תודה רבה. נתתי בשביל פיינברג, נשארתי את זה שם.
אוקיי, מצוין.
תודה ולא נפריע בשיעור.
אוקיי, ומתי אתם?
ביום שישי אנחנו נוסעים.
יפה מאוד.
יופי, תודה.
תודה רבה. תודה רבה. אבל מותר לטלטל מוקצה בגופו שלא כדרכו. ויש שם שמותר לטלטל מוקצה ברגלו, דחושב כטלטל בגופו. So, some say that the foot is like with your body. However, yesh cholkin. The Yalkut Yosef says that it refers to the position of Chazon Ish, who ruled more stringently regarding tiltul begufo. However, Mokom Tzorech Efshar Lismoch Ala Mekilim. He says you can rely on the lenient opinions. But din ze Omer Lagabe Kol Sugi Mukzeh. This is no matter what it is. Mukzeh Machmas Gufo, Mukzeh Machmas Chisoron Kiss, any kind of Mukzeh. So now we've learned something very important. You can always move a Mukzeh item You're allowed to move money with your feet because you're worried that people are going to steal it. Rav Moshe Feinstein rules that it is permitted to move muktzeh items with one's body for the sake of the muktzeh item only for a necessary purpose. He was asked, Rav Moshe, what's the correct manner? When should you use the leniency of moving something with your body? Is it, what was his opinion? He was stringent regarding moving it for the purpose of the Mukzeh. But if you move it if it's really necessary, you could do it. We will conclude this volume and our study of the laws of Mukzeh by stressing that Mukzeh is a complex topic with many categories and details, some of which we have not covered. One subject that's beyond the scope of these shiurim relates to rendering an item Mukzeh on Shabbos. Mevatel kli me'echono. By using it for a Mukzeh item, such as placing a bucket underneath an air conditioner that is leaking. Another subject that not discussed in the Mukzeh test of broken items or detached parts of a vessel or garment. Although I believe that the Tzurba people did a marvelous job with Mukzeh. Mukzeh is generally an extremely complicated, and they've organized it very nicely for us. Moreover, it's an extremely practical one, such as multiple questions involving Mukzeh are likely to arise every Shabbos in one's home. For this reason, it's important to constantly review the laws of Mukzeh to ensure that one can properly comply with them every week. Hopefully, our study of many of the aspects of Mukzeh will enable us to better observe this important halacha. Let us learn the machshava, and we'll be done with volume 20. And Mirza Hashem, we will start volume 21 next week. Anyone who needs volume 21, you need to come over and pick it up. Yaakov picked it up today. Machshava. For many people, the Shabbos meals are among the highlights of Shabbos. It's the highlights of the whole week. The good food, conversation, spending time with family create a truly special weekly experience. Look at what the secular world is writing. Charlie Kirk, he was assassinated. He wrote extensively about keeping Shabbat with his family. And I've read many articles about that put away your phone for a week, and it's improving the quality of life of a lot of people.
I worked for Kraft Foods, and we had a meeting, a meeting for everyone, and at the time, the concept was connecting over food. And the president turned around and asked all sorts of them, how does your family connect over food? And she looked at me, a Jewish woman, who's I'm Jewish and Shomer Shabbat, and she said, hi, how does your family get together over food? Mm-hmm. I read it, I said, well, we either do it Friday night, Saturday lunch, and if that fails, Sunday night. What happens, I explained to her, and we're a minimum of 12 people. Okay, and everyone is like, 12 people every week. And to them, their holidays, however much they are, at best, they're 6 people, 8 people, once a year, or then you've got the boyish holidays. But we do it every week. They're freaking out, and it's. I think back about that time.
Every week.
And we do it every week. And the truth is, I love it. Without my phone, without the remote, it's.
So Rav Mordechai Eliyahu reminds us, however, that we must remember that we are not only eating for our own pleasure, but also because it's a mitzvah. If we can have this in mind and make sure to share the words of Torah, then the Shabbos table can atone for our sins in the same manner as the Mizbech did in the Beis HaMikdash. Kasher adam ochel l'shem shamayim, v'omer divrei Torah l'shulchan, when you eat for the purpose of shamayim, and you say divrei Torah, harei shulchano hi shemechaper, his table becomes an atonement vehicle. Beprat b'yom Shabbos kodesh. Really, It's any day, but certainly on Shabbos. Shachila bo he mitzvah. It's not necessarily a mitzvah to eat every day, but on Shabbos you have a mitzvah to eat. Achilas kazayis or kabetz of pasi choiva. It's a chiyuv. V'yesh lahem toseva shel neshama yisera. You have another neshama. Ima adam ochel shma. If you eat for the right purpose, l'shem onek Shabbos. V'omer divrei Torah shulchano. You say divrei Torah. Kedushat Shabbat, kedushat shulchan mechaperes. The combination of the holiness of Shabbos and the holiness of your table has the ability to atone. Ke kohanim shemecharpim l'baleim b'chilason. The kohanim ate the food that the Bnei Yisrael brought, the korbanos. That was part of the atonement. Rabbi Kiva Rabinovitz, Rebbe of the Poris of Chasidus, who recently passed away August 2024, notes in his work Hashir Vashevach that the manner in which one conducts the Shabbos meals can have an important impact upon one's children. B'Shabbat yesh chashivut rabba l'noseh chinuch. Educating children is very important on Shabbos. Liat shulchan haShabbos nitan lasik toelet rabba b'chinuch. We can gain educational pearls next to this Shabbos table. You shouldn't rush through the Shabbos meal. It's important to extend the meal with saying something about the Parsha, Divrei Musar, or Sipurei Tzadikim, stories about Tzadikim. The children are benefiting from this, the whole family. Fathers should learn with their children in Yanei Midot, good morals, good ethics, good attributes, Lifi Sfarim, Shonim, different Sfarim, Mesilas Yesharim, right? Mamei Chazal, Divrei Tzadikim, Al Midot, on good attributes. B'afsakot sheben HaKiddush l'su'uda. Let's say there's some time between Kiddush and the meal, off the Sudatzma, even during the meal, Ben Mana Lamana, between courses, Loram al Midos Tovos, so that they develop good character. It's important to avoid conversation which besmirches or maligns others, as evidence from a story told by Rav Yitzchak Zilberstein about the Chassidic Rebbe of Gur. A person got sick, had a number of operations. He needed more surgery. One of the previous Ger Rebbes. The question the Rebbe asked this man who was undergoing all these surgeries was, what was their behavior at the Shabbos table? There's a lot of lashon hara. They dissected every person and everybody's problem. Instead of saying over about the parsha of Shir Shabbos b'Shulchan Shabbos, the Ger Rebbe said, "Tafsiku l'nateach anashim." Stop dissecting people with your words. B'Shulchan Shabbat v'yasiku anetuchim imcha, and you will not necessarily need surgeries. Amar Rav v'kach haya shepasko anetuchim, and he stopped doing it, and he didn't need the surgeries anymore. May we be successful in elevating our Shabbos meals from just being a great culinary experience to the higher goal of inspiring ourselves and our families to follow a life of Torah and the service of Hashem with joy. I don't know what that has to do with Mukzeh, but it was a nice way to close.
Well, an easy way of doing that is singing.
Yeah. Any comments, questions by everybody, by anybody? Okay, so we start volume 21 next week.
Yes,
Thank you, David. Good material.